Well, just in time for what could be the beginning of healing the hatchet wound of partisan politics, or possibly deepening that divide, depending on the outcome. We bring you our third and final installment on civil discourse. It's the goal of the nonprofit group, the Braver Angels, to bridge the gap between the political aisle, to find common ground in what seems so elusive in the modern era of social media. We've been inside one of their red-blue workshops to see how it's done in a group setting. We've also sat in on several one-on-one sessions, discussing contentious topics like immigration, abortion, and today, fittingly, election integrity. One of the participants today refers to himself as centrist left. The other leans to the right. Both agree with fair and free elections, just not in how you get there.
Hi, I'm John.
My name is Steve.
My political leanings are centrist left.
I lean to the center. In this particular context, election integrity, I lean right.
I am very frustrated at how much antics were put forth by one political party.
We got to find a way to control the chaos, and one of the best ways to do it is to have airtight policies around the election issues.
Election integrity is foundational to democracy.
To make sure we have accurate data, it's recorded the right way, and that it's a trustworthy system.
If we lose that piece, that's the beginning of anarchy, in my opinion.
What would you say is good about what your side brings to the issue?
I think most people want easy, convenient access to voting. But the problems are when we start having processes and bad data and inaccuracies that are seriously damaging the system. And I want to make something clear up front. The problem is not undocumented aliens. The problem is not impersonations. It is a fact, I will admit, that those are very rare. Here's the problem. There is duplications. There are ineligible voters. There are fraudulent registrations. There is coercion. There's good old-fashioned 19th century ballot box stuffing.
The biggest risk that we have to free and fair elections is that we have one party that is willing to do anything to ensure that their guy wins. That is a major problem. That is the antithesis of free and fair elections and election integrity. I believe that the Democratic Party, the blue end of the spectrum, is using the system as it is in place, and it was shown to have worked. The lies were pressed against, and that this was the most secure election that had ever been conducted in the United States. It was never accepted by the top of the GOP ticket. And my favorite part of their whole approach is that they view themselves as victims.
What would you consider to be justifiable criticisms of positions that might be taken on either side?
I think that authentic and robust conversations about ballot harvesting, about voter registration, about early absentee voting, I believe that citizens of the United States could come up with a solution for that. This is a problem to be solved. We need to start talking to each other about bringing back the idea of the best ideas win, and then demonizing or exploding the ideas of gerrymandering districts or doing some funny business with ballots after they've been cast. And Democrats got some blood on their hands with that as well.
I am very empathetic with people who feel apprehensive, cynical, scared, by the things that have gone on there. So that has to stop completely. A second thing I would bring up is that there was a fair amount of harassment at drop boxes back in the last few elections. And drop boxes, again, are not a problem, at least in terms of all the data. And most of this harassment was done by what I would call very right-wing thuggish groups. There is no place for harassing and intimidating people. The biggest criticism I have of my so-called side is this infatuation with illegals voting and with impersonation, because that's not the case, but they're taking their eye off the ball at the far more insidious cases where it is happening and affecting our the potential to do great harm in elections. So.
I'm enthused by how much common ground there is. I wish this would infect Capitol Hill. I wish that the two sides would start talking to each other and say, let's solve the problem. Let's build on what we can agree on, and put the divisive issues off to the side, and see how many improvements we can come up with for this system, because it is so foundational. We got to do this well.
Ditto that. I think maybe we might joke about both being engineers, but there is a commitment to truth and fact. And the thing about fact, you can have opposing facts. They're both valid. Which one has the superior argument?
Yes.
That's what gritty democracy is about. Whatever the objective is, whatever the restraints are, what speaks most to people's values. There's always going to be someone who feels a little jaded, but the more you can have facts and truth be the foundation, the more we will come up with great solutions like we've often done in this country. We survived the Civil War, we survived the Great Depression, we can survive this, but it is not certain right now, which is, I think, one of the reasons we're both here.
Well, and one of the things I think we got to recognize is it's the extremist voices on both, way at the ends of the ideological spectrum that are sowing so much discontent. We got to push back against those. I believe Americans really want all this stuff to work, and they want their country to thrive. We are being opposed by the extremists, and we got to see that clearly and say, nope, sorry, we're not going there. We're going to be back here and work on stuff where we can find common ground and where we can agree.
Well, tomorrow and the days after the election, perhaps many days, election integrity is going to be top of mind. But as we've been repeatedly told, and we reported here, the 2020 presidential election was, quote, the most secure in American history. Many people have said that. While the integrity of Idaho's elections has rarely, if ever, been questioned. The Braver Angels are always looking for volunteers, by the way, to participate in one of those group session discussions. And if you are interested, we're going to have a link to their website in this story and the stories we've already done. It'll be on our website at ktvb.com. By the way, this Saturday, there is an opportunity to get involved with Braver Angels. They are hosting a free viewing of the documentary Road Trip Across a Divided America at 7 o'clock at Hyde Park Mennonite Church to remind us we're not as politically divided as we might think.